Welcome to the International College of Dentists, Chronicles of Outstanding Leaders in Dentistry. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Dr. Richard G. Shaffer, Rear Admiral retired, Dental Corps, U.S. Navy. Dentistry and medicine, both nationally and globally, have benefited from Dr. Shaffer's executive leadership. His has been a most unusual and stellar career, one that's included leadership in the military and in the private sectors. In 1984, he became the first Navy dentist to command a major medical command, the National Naval Medical Command of the National Capital Research Region, with responsibilities for the President's Hospital at Bethesda, Maryland, plus health care in 5 states. Upon retiring from the Navy, Dr. Shaffer served as the Secretary General of the International College of Dentists for a 10-year period during an incredible growth of that organization. And these are just a few of his accomplishments. So I'm delighted to have Dr. Shaffer here to learn more about the man behind these accomplishments and other events in his life. So welcome, Dr. Shaffer.
Thank you. This is kind of unusual sitting on this side of the camera, but it's a joy to be here with you, Geshanka.
Well, I'm glad. I know as the chair of the audiovisual committee for this particular project for the International College of Dentists, you have given so much to the organization, and so it's a pleasure for me to be here as well. Now, as you know well, we like to learn from our leaders and to see what really inspired them and how they got their start. And if you could tell me a little bit about your growing up in Ohio and how your family inspired you.
Well, that's easy. I had the opportunity to go into a family, by birth, of course, to a wonderful mother and father. My father was an electrical engineer, graduated from Akron University, Buckeye College, and my mother, who was around fully because she was an invalid, gave me a wonderful start. They had the practices that I think all of us as parents would love to instill in our children. I had one brother who was a computer wizard and went to Worcester College, another Ohio. My mother went to Otterbein, and I ended up going to Ohio Wesleyan. So we were a little Ohio State College group. My dad was an Army officer, was commissioned in 1927. And in 1938, prior to World War II, was called to active duty. And we moved to New Jersey, and I was a little tyke. Moved to Long Branch, New Jersey, where my father was stationed at Fort Monmouth, and became the executive officer of Fort Monmouth during the early stages of World War II.
Were you the older brother?
My brother was older. My brother is 4 years older than I, and he was Phi Beta Kappa. The difference of us is he was smarter, but I could throw baseball further than he could. So. And we graduated 4 years apart. He got graduated from college. So I was really an only child for those years with my mom and dad. And my dad was an interesting guy. He was smaller than my mother in stature, and was a wonderful softball pitcher because he was 5'5", and he could pitch a softball and curve and everything. And in those days, I was a fairly good catcher. I played in Cleveland A, and I would catch him in the church league. And it's fun catching your dad.
Well, something must have happened right at home in the Midwest, they would have called you a tall drink of water.
Well, in Long Branch, it was every day I got a tablespoon of cod liver oil.
Well, there you go. There you go.
But it was a great youth. Dad was gone for 3 years during the Second World War, and so there was some friends of Mom's who, since she was kind of incapacitated with her physical problem, she was a very bright, praying lady. And we did very well until Dad retired in 45 and moved back to Lakewood, Ohio, which I consider home.
And that's where you went to high school?
Went to high school in Lakewood. It's about 8 miles west of Cleveland. And high school was a great time for me. I'd go back in a heartbeat. I'm one of those.
Have you been back to the reunions?
I have. We would go back to all of them.
They must have been proud of you when you go back.
They're kind of fun. And it's interesting to note that I won the moving award. Barb and I have moved 18 times in our career. And so we won the moving award, and they gave me a cup. I don't know what that meant, but I got a cup. And people don't move around much unless they join the military. It was there were 300 and some in the class, and probably 80% of those people were still within 8 miles of the high school.
I've met Ohioans, and they, not only when they do move, they move back to Ohio.
Yeah,
There's something about that state.
Well, my son went to college there too, and is an attorney, has bar privileges in Ohio, and so one of my sons. And so it gave me a good start, I think. And I, in high school, was an 85% go to college group of students. So even though I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do.
Well, you majored in chemistry.
Chemistry, yeah.
So you knew you were going to go in the sciences. Was that your father's doing with his electrical engineering?
I'm not sure why that was. I had a professor or a teacher in high school that was pushing people to Ohio Wesleyan. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. Of course, all moms want you to be physicians. And
Is that what she wanted you to be?
She wanted me to die, and I didn't turn me on a bit. So when I went down there, I got associated with the chemistry department. The chairman of that department was the one that if he said you get in school, you got in school. He had 100% approval rating.
Had a little bit of a military approach, right?
A little bit. And so I was in AF RFDC for a while, and Dr. Manuel, I'll never forget him, he said, "Where do you want to go to school?" I said, "Well, I'm going to get married, and where can my wife make the most money?" And he says,
you were ahead of your time.
Well, she was. We were engaged, and she said, "Well, I'll teach and put you through dental school." And he says, "Where you want to go?" And I said, "I think she can make $300 more a month in Cleveland." She started her first year in 4th grade elementary school for $3,000 a year.
Well, Barbara has been your wife for almost 50 years now. You've been strong partners. Is that correct?
Yes, 49 years in a month.
In a month.
Yeah.
So that was a decision you both made together of how you would start your life after college. And
well, I let her graduate, and then we married the next week, and then she started working.
But did you meet in college? Or
we met at Ohio Wesleyan University. I knew her sister before I knew her. And she transferred in there as a junior, and her sister came back to American University here in Washington. And so I had the opportunity to... I guess this is not bad to say on this stuff. I was paid by a fraternity brother to get her out of the way when her sister came back. He gave me $20, so I didn't know who she was, and I called her up and said, "Could I take you to the homecoming dance?"
And I am sure she has been delighted about that story.
She tells
all the
that
way
story,
through.
but
that's a wonderful story.
She embellishes it a little more
sure.
to the grandkids' level. And so we did date that night. I ended up with $5 in my pocket, and I thought this was pretty good for a little kid from Ohio.
Well, and you got a wonderful woman and wonderful partner.
Yes, I did.
So dental school. Why dental school?
Well, when I was at Ohio Wesleyan and taking chemistry, people said, "Well, let's look at the professions." You know, this Dr. Manuel, who was quite a guy, says, "I want you to look at all scientific professions. I want you to even take the exams in these things." And so I did. I took the dental aptitude test and did fairly well. I liked to fiddle around, and I liked the people.
Did you do the chalk?
Yeah, we did the chalk drawing. It was something back. I don't know if they do that anymore.
They do it all on computer now.
Oh my goodness! Well, we had to carve this thing, and I did fairly well. And he called me and he says, "You know what? I know you don't want to be a physician, but have you thought of dentistry? It's a wonderful healthcare profession, and I think you'd be good at it. My dad said, do what you think you should be doing.
But you had no dental mentors at
no,
that time.
nothing.
It was sort of more of an option.
It was just something that I knew I had. See, back in those days, my dad said, listen, go to college, get a degree, find a wife, and then you're not coming home anymore. Of course, now your kids all come home. So, you know, and so I did pretty well of finding a wife, and then I got to find a profession. So I then selected Case Western, which was near my parents, which was the reason we did that. And she could make $300 more there than I could have made at going to Ohio State. And that's why I selected Case Western. At that point, with Manuel saying he's a go, I was guaranteed admission. And that was 1956.
Now, what was dental school like at that time?
Well, we were in an old building that when you had the handpiece in the mouth and the train went by, you had to take it out, you know, because you're afraid of cutting the cheek or something.
That's right. Did you have the spray in your hand?
We had everything, you know. And I
Chase Page handpiece.
I thought some of the professors were very frustrating. They would do things to you that I thought were kind of, you'd like to punch them, but you couldn't punch them because you. But I enjoyed it, and I see that group, a lot of them, I see that group still through the years. Most of them have done quite well from Case Western. And we were given our dean was Paul Boyle, who you remember that name. And he was replacing a guy that was a gold foil fellow named Hill. And Hill actually came into the clinic as the dean to show you how to do gold foils. We did them hand malleting, little annealed pieces of gold.
Small pieces, one by
one. It was a trudgery, and had to do one on our state boards, and it was scary. Because I didn't know how. I thought it was pretty good, but you never know on the state boards. So dental school was a good time for me. I joined the Navy in the reserve program and went once a week.
So during dental school, you were in ROTC in college.
Yeah, I was in.
And then in dental school, you were in the reserve. So you already identified a military career early on. Was that because of your father?
I identified a military affiliation. I had to drop out of AFROTC because I didn't continue on that senior year, and I had to pay him back $1.20 a day or whatever it was. I did do training in single-seat jets for 12 hours, the T-33s, because I love to fly. But it was important. I don't know why I picked the Navy, other than it had a wonderful reputation, and I thought I looked better in blue than I did in green. So that's why and we went once a week and one summer. Of course, we were married at the time. That was a little money. It was nice.
Right.
And Barb was still teaching fourth grade in Lakewood, Ohio.
So you moved right into an internship.
Yes. Graduated and went to Portsmouth Naval Hospital in April 1960 and was one of 2 dental and 20 medical interns at the hospital, which was magnificent.
So that must have been like the old rotating internships.
Exactly.
So you had several months on different services like anesthesiology.
Yes, we had more anesthesia than the physician had. And I got the fun part now this doesn't turn on many people nowadays, but I stood duty every other night for a year. On board.
Think that's terrific.
And I got to do all the facial wounds and everything because the physicians didn't know how. And I was getting better at it. And with the Norfolk area with 600,000.
You had trauma.
And motorcycles. Every night there was something exciting, and I could follow it through neurosurgery. It was really a great internship. And I think I got better as a dentist, but I also found out that you're not prepared very well in dental school for many things.
Well, especially in that kind of an intensive care setting, because you were integrated into a delivery system, whereas in dental school you're in the different individual operatories.
And the oral surgeon didn't push you out of the way when you broke a root tip.
That's right. You had to do that.
You get it out. And so it was an exciting year, and we became very close to those 10 medical guys who were on with you every other night. We never knew the other guys because we never saw them.
So did you then join for a career at that time, or did you step in mainly for the training and then decided to stay on? How did that
Many of the people, I was USNR when I went in as an intern. And I went in as a JG. They didn't. The other people were going in as lieutenants. So I really had about a 3-year obligation and thought maybe that would be it. And Barb and I were thinking, well, that's probably going to be it. And I was offered a practice in Shelby, Michigan, where our cottage is now, by a pharmacist. Said, come on up here. And we thought about it. It didn't take very long to say no. But each year seemed to get a little more comfortable for us in the military. We liked what we saw. We liked our senior people. And we had some wonderful mentors. One's still alive. The other one has passed on. But Admiral George Selfridge was my second boss back in 1961. And I talk to him weekly nowadays. So that atmosphere was a family.
And he was an inspiration to you, and that.
He was magnificent, still is. He's about 82 or 3 now, lives in St. Louis, ex-dean at Washington University. Still works with us with the International College, and he and Ruthie are just special.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, I know that the Navy has very strict rules and procedures and recognizes excellence rarely. And you were recognized early on in your career and went on to command several regional commands and dental centers. Can you tell me about those early days, both at Great Lakes and at Norfolk?
Yeah, well, we had worked, we did the career path as it was suggested. We did the overseas, we did the ships. And
you were in Spain?
We were in Panama and Spain in between there. Worked 3 years in Panama. Lovely time. The 3 boys were little, but it was a great place.
Were the boys born in different countries?
No, the boys were born in different states. Rick was born in dental school, and Russell was born at the internship, and then Bob was born at the Naval Academy when it was a naval hospital. Now it's a clinic. But we thought that was pretty good, and I guess I've achieved the ultimate. A lot of people can fool some of the people some of the time. I fooled them all the time.
I don't think
and
so. I don't think so.
And we were when I went back as dean of the school at Bethesda, the chief of the corps at that point picked me to be the CO at Great Lakes, which was magnificent. I had 108 dentists there, and it, Great Lakes is a place that you mean to go because it's on the way to no place. But it was wonderful.
Well, it's still a highlight. I mean, it's now the center of research.
Yes.
For the military overall. So.
And it's the center of all boots.
Yes.
All boot camp.
Yes.
I thought San Diego was nicer weather, but they picked Great Lakes. And it was a point when our youngest son was with us. I did some different, interesting things at that point. I was on the Board of Education for North Chicago, which was representing about 30% of the student body, which was Navy dependents.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting time, and we got a lot of things being associated with Chicago, and the Hyatt Hotel was good for Armed Forces Day and stuff like that when he lived there. So Great Lakes was a special place. It was my first command, and I had the opportunity to have a lot of young people. At that point, one time, we had 8 couples, both husband and wife, Dennis, coming in on active duty. And Barb was so good at it. We had beautiful quarters right behind the clock.
You had a lot of social family events.
We had a lot of fun, and we got them together pretty routinely. And I guess I could admit, I don't know if this is good for the record, but I liked to party myself back then. And I still do, but that was really a time when you could get together and sit down with a cool one with a bunch of young people just getting out of school and trying to give them impact.
I think this is something that isn't done as often as it should be nowadays. The mixing of the work and social aspects, you get to learn about individuals, and you do that so well.
Well, aren't you kind?
No,
I enjoy doing it, and Barb is wonderful at it. And when we lived at Bethesda, we had every dental officer that ever came to the Washington area into our home. And it gets expensive because the military never backed you up with money, but it was okay. But we still see those people. And for example, this week I've been hosting for 16 years a retired Navy dental officer dinner, and it's this coming Saturday, Friday at the university. And we have them coming from probably 18 states.
And how many are?
Well, we get over 125 Navy dental officers retired. And it's a good time. Everybody gets together and lies a lot. It's fun.
Well, you went to Norfolk then from Great Lakes, is that right?
Yes, I made flag at Great Lakes, and then was sent to Norfolk and became the fleet dental officer plus the commander of the biggest clinic in the Navy, and it was kind of fun. That didn't last very long, unfortunately. I was only there a year
But then they called you back to
Well,
Bethesda,
They
isn't that
called
right?
me. They called me back to BUMed, where Lou Seaton was the Surgeon General. He asked me as the first Vice Commander of Navy Medicine, so I was the deputy of Navy Medicine at downtown at BUMed.
But
for
then you
a
got
year.
your second star.
I got my second star at Bethesda the next couple months, and Lou said, "Would you take the command at Bethesda?" Well, my career said to me, the answer to that when the Surgeon General asked you is, "Aye, aye, sir."
That's right.
And we went out there for 4 wonderful years. It was the Reagan era. I got to know him quite well, went through 4 surgeries with the family, lived on the compound in a beautiful home built by Roosevelt in 1941, and we just had a ball.
Well, tell me about some of the highlights during that time. You were also not only commanding officer and the first dentist, and probably the only dentist that
So
has
far,
commanded
yeah,
so
yeah.
far, but also you were overseeing the whole dental.
Yeah, that was
command
the
as
nice
well.
part. It
Both
was
of
at
them.
a period when the dental corps sort of lost its staff downtown, and
Right.
so I had a guy named Bob Smythe who was the best support guy you could ever. He just got out of ICAF, which is at Fort Monroe or Fort whatever that is here in town, McNair. And Bob was my staff, and we'd meet in my quarters to run the dental corps from about 8 to 10 at night. In fact, Bob had a young daughter named Jessica who was graduating from University of Pennsylvania this week. We had toys in our living room for her because he would come over and bring
And
her.
bring her.
And we would do the business of the corps on the night. And then it expanded a little bit, so I got a staff downtown and that quite well. But having had the support at Bethesda, I was able to travel a little bit for the dental corps. And at that point, we worked it up to 1,800 dentists. And now I think it's down pretty far. But it was an enjoyable time to go around the world and see these young, enthusiastic, these kids were contagious to do well. They were just fantastic. And we could go around the world and just tell them that because they needed to hear it from the boss. And I was the boss. Now, like it or not, I was the boss.
Well, you were the boss not only of the dentist, but how many physicians and nurses?
Well, we had a lot
and
of people at
pharmacists?
Bethesda. We had 5 states, and I think there was probably 3,000 or 4,000 fitness reports.
Yeah.
But I had a staff to do that too, and they were wonderful.
So tell me some stories about your interaction with the president during that
Well,
time.
you know, President Reagan was a magnificent guy, and Nancy.
You must have had a good rapport
we did.
with
we
him.
did. We had, and anytime he was there, I was there. And of course, I knew where he was at all time if he was in Washington because we may have been the hot hospital.
Right.
And he was.
And he gave the hospitals a little bit of run for their money during
Well, of
his
course,
term.
his first big one was George Washington when somebody shot him.
Right.
But he would come out there, and he was just a magnificent, contagious guy. You could look at him, and you just
the
said,
aura.
"Hey, he is the man." And you had a great respect for him just because he could stand there. Nancy was a very interesting lady, too. She had to be a little bit more tough because he was so nice. She had to protect him.
It's more reserved,
And
more
he'd-
formal.
Right, and he'd come in, and he came in one time, which I think is a riot. He came in one time for colonoscopy, and we found cancer. So the next morning, they said, we're going to do surgery. He's already prepared. Here we go, do surgery. We created that hospital into 400 people came in from the media. Did his surgery, it worked beautifully. He was out a very short time and had to delegate the presidency to the vice president. Those were wonderful things. And the next Friday, I asked, it was Don Regan was the chief of staff, and I said, could we say goodbye to the president as the hospital? And he says, no. Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, he says, yeah, let's say goodbye. I said, wait a minute, everybody, what is this? So anyway, we put in what we call the recall system, the master chief of the command, put it in motion. The next morning, we had 800 sailors saying goodbye to the president. And the thing was, is you never can be within 6 feet of the president, except in a place like this.
Yeah.
And he walked through these sailors. You could see him standing up taller because he was just amazing. And he wore my ball cap. It says Navy was not an adventure, you know. And he got on his helicopter and went home. He was amazing. I can tell you the story of I had a presidential team of four people. And I would go over to the hospital at 5 o'clock because he would be in there. This is a major week. He was in several times because he had prostate cancer and he had some cancer of the skin and stuff. But I went over there, and we had one of my 4 teams always at the desk in the presidential unit, which is at the Naval Hospital,
Right.
Bethesda. This girl is about 5:30 in the morning. She's sitting up to Sparky, and I thought, wait, she went on duty at 11. I said, what's wrong with you? You smoking something? What's going on? She said, the president just came out and talked to me.
Oh.
This was about a 5-foot African-American girl that was manning my desk. He came out, the President of the United States, and talked to her for a half hour. She was higher than a kite. She was higher than a kite for weeks. But this is the kind of guy he was. And the famous one you see him is waving out of the window
Right.
when he was feeling
Right.
better about the 3rd day after surgery. The other one I love to tell is, if you have time, we have time. Where are you, Jen? He had a procedure on his nose, which was cancer, and they did what they call a Mohs procedure, where they take a.
Oh, I know the most.
Well, he wore a contact lens, and I didn't know that, and so I was in there with him, and somebody handed me a little bottle and said, "Here's the president's contact lens. You hold it, man, for the next 2 hours." I'm sitting like this. No way I was going to let the building could have burnt down. I was holding the
right.
president.
You had the vision in your head.
Yeah. Oh, good. That was good. But it was a fun time to be there with him. And
I want to ask you, because people do ask dentists who are being asked to apply for senior leadership positions, can a dentist take a role that traditionally has been held by a physician? And you've lived through that.
Yeah,
What would you say to them?
well, the Navy Dental Corps has radically changed in the last 2 years. The command structure is gone.
Yes.
And I think now there is a process where they can do that by having significant bills and screening. In fact, I'm told that in the next 6 months there will be a dentist as the CO of a naval hospital.
Okay.
I'm not sure I like that system, but they're no longer flags in corps. They're called SHEs, or which is Senior Healthcare Executives. I guess, I can't knock it because I loved it.
Right. And
But
you
I
did
think,
a fabulous
well,
job.
I think that people can follow that process, but I'm not sure you got to have sort of a pusher, I think. You got to have a mentor that's going to come in and stay with you. And I think that's true in a lot of places.
But you have been a lifelong learner. I've seen the number of courses and training you've had after dental school, after your internship, and executive management and education. You've got a master's in education. You have purposely followed both a formal and informal, series of steps that have given you the skills and experience.
I did, and it was worthwhile, I think.
I think it's definitely
Getting my
worthwhile.
master's in education at age 42, I'm not sure what that did for me. All it did was I get a lot of mail from the university for money. But
well, I know I benefited from your leadership there because both of our daughters were born in the hospital during the time you were in charge.
Well, see, and we did a good job.
You
because
did a
have
great
wonderful
job.
daughters.
That's right. Very
You have
productive.
Wonderful daughters.
Well, then you went on, after you retired from the Navy with such a stellar career, to become the Secretary General of the International College of Dentists.
Yeah. Great job.
And it was a 10-year period that really revolutionized the association. Major growth,
Thank
right?
you. I think it did too. We took it from an organization that was being run part-time from a fellow's private practice. Frank Kenward was my predecessor and was a wonderful guy, and run out of his private practice in Miami, Florida. And when I interviewed for it, I said, I'm not coming to Miami. If you want it, if I get it, we're going to go up there and we'll set it up someplace in Rockville. I'm not moving. And they said, okay. So they allowed me a certain amount of money to set up the central office, which I put in Rockville, Maryland, where it still is, with Bob Brady running it. And we moved it and created an organization which was immediately responsive. Frank was there when it was a smaller organization, and it expanded beautifully under Frank. And his wife, Marcia, did a wonderful job, too. Both of them passed away. But we were able to, I hired a wonderful lady named Florence Falvalita, who was my administrative assistant. And for a 2-person office, we could support the 9,000 members in the 80 countries because we didn't worry about time. We were, we said we're going to here to do the job, and we had wonderful office spaces. and had good presidents of both the college and the USA section. My philosophy was, and it was a little different than Frank's, this is board-run organization. The board figure out what you want to do, tell me about it, and get out of my way, because I'll make it happen. And it did. And we expanded, and we got better projects, and we got more candidates. In the United States, we bring in 250 a year, well-deserved candidates,
Right.
where we used to bring in under 200. So the organization now is, the journals are better, everything is better, and I like to think I contributed to that somehow, but the various presidents on through, like the person that developed this whole program, Bill Hopkins, has passed on, but he developed this audiovisual program with a couple other gentlemen from Oklahoma, and what a program this is. I mean, we've done over 63 or 4 interviews, and it gets more valuable as it goes along.
And I think you nurtured it and you continued this program and others and let them grow, as you said.
Yeah.
What are some specific events in addition to this program that stand out in your mind?
Well, Barb and I had the privilege of traveling around the world and visiting all these people. And,
Did you visit all 80 to 90 countries?
Well, no, we couldn't do that. We visited all the sections.
All
All
the
the
sections.
sections, which were make up a good number of those. We visited some nifty places, and I think that some of the highlighted places were Vienna was a great meeting of the Europeans. Seoul was a wonderful meeting of Korea and Japan. Singapore got too expensive in Japan, so Singapore hosted it. I mean, Japan hosted it in Singapore. I think that our trips to South America, where we purged the files a little bit, there were just too many. Santiago, Chile was magnificent with a great ICD there, Manfred Seidemann. And all over the country, we visited the various cities that would support the USA section. We got nothing but wonderful hospitality, and they'd say what they want, and I'd say, well, we'll try to give that to you, and we were able to do it. I think the continuing education programs, this is number 23, I think. Unfortunately, I'm missing it this year, but I haven't missed the last 20. They've been in wonderful. I recall Beaver Creek, Colorado. I recall Traverse City, Michigan, with the final night on the beach with the sunset. I mean, those are just wonderful memories of 250 dentists there having a good time because they are all qualified to be a fellow of the college. And we don't, we ask people to join.
Right.
You don't join us.
Right.
You have to be highly qualified. And it was exciting to watch what it was doing. And now they have a staff of 4, and it's a little bit different oriented, but it was super. I didn't think I'd ever find a family as good as the Navy. This was a pretty good group.
Well, you are a natural family man. I mean, I think the way you speak about the different groups and organizations, you bring out the personal side of things.
Well,
that's an important
it does
attribute.
make a difference. People like their name.
Yeah.
If you can remember their name, you're doing them quite a
That's
favor.
a good thing.
That's right. I had a lot of fun time there at Bethesda because I'd walk around the hospital, and I like to tell this because I think it's important. Attitude is one of the only things you get to choose every day. Your attitude. You can wake up in the morning and have a crummy attitude or a good attitude. And I used to walk around and see the young sailors, and I'd say, how you doing there, petty officer? I'm doing fine. I said, well, tell your face.
Tell your face. Would you say that too?
I did. I said, tell your face, because it didn't show.
Yeah.
You can make your voice smile on the telephone. You can do a lot of things, which shows your attitude for the day. At least I think so. And
But I think your mom and dad did a fabulous job. I mean,
they were good.
To have ingrained the attitude in you,
Yeah,
because you're always high level energy. Now, the Commendation Bernardo O'Higgins Award from the Republic of Chile.
Interesting.
Now, that's a very unusual award. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the president of Chile, and this has been 4 years ago, awarded me this Bernardo O'Higgins. It's their highest civilian award because of what I did for the dentists of the country of Chile. And they presented it to me in San Francisco. And it was kind of a fun thing. It's a medal and all this kind of thing. But The foreign countries, I'm a member of honorary member of Canada, and I've got the Korean. I've got the honorary membership in Tokyo. These are what they. But that was kind of because I was in a job, I think. But it was exciting. This Higgins Award was one of the highlights, and I was a little embarrassed that the 700 people were there for the other people who had to witness this. But it's Florence and I really did this together. She didn't get anything, but I thanked her.
Well, and also the Otofi Okumura Award also.
That's the highest award of the International College. And they've given it out about 8 times, I guess, in the history. And they were kind. They were glad I was gone, but they wanted me to think they weren't, so they gave me that award. And, and I'm delighted. I'm honored to be that. Yeah.
Well, these awards didn't just come, by themselves. They came because of the things that you've accomplished, and people wanted to honor you. I just wanted to read some of your military awards. The Distinguished Service Medal, 3 Legion of Merits, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Navy Commendation Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, and then awards for battle efficiency, for sea service, for expert rifle medal and pistol marksman,
like that. Tough. Yeah.
And 3 letters of commendation from the President and from the Marine Corps Commanding General and the Surgeon General of the Navy, too.
Did I give you that list? That's a good one.
Yeah, is that a good list? I think it's a terrific list, but it also shows me everything from a marksman, to an incredible leader, from the President of the United States recognizing you to the different places that you've worked. So you are to be commended for all of this, and they are honors well bestowed. I wanted to move into a little bit more of some personal attributes, because what makes Dick Shaffer tick, so to speak? You have been an incredible leader, and there's many different leadership styles. I would say that your leadership style is one that really is the personal one-to-one approach. But you also inspire groups through the exchange that you and Barbara have established for them and opened up your home. Tell me what you see as your secret leadership style.
Well, I guess I learned some of this from my dad. When I got in command, I never hesitated to give somebody responsibility. I guess I'll give them the job. You do it, here it is, let's get it done, and if you have a problem, tell me. And I could do that. I could delegate pretty easy because the people around me were smarter than me. And that's a success thing. If you can get people around you smarter, And I only got burned twice in about 9 years of command by letting other people use their own initiatives, and I delegated the work to them. I did like the idea of one-on-one. I tell one story which is so special to me. As I'd walk around the hospital, I stopped a petty officer, 3rd class, and I said, "Why are you a 3rd class? Why aren't you a 2nd class?" "Well, I'm studying, sir." And I said, "Where are you from?" He says, "Ohio." And I says, "Well, then you ought to be a 1st class." And I said, "What do you really want to do with your life, son?" He says, "I want to be a doctor." I said, "You got it, but you got it. You got to do it." About a year ago, he tapped me on the shoulder. He says, "Do you remember me?" I said, "No."
You were
Sorry,
honest.
I didn't remember. Well, he was one of 15,000 corpsmen. He says, "I'm a resident in anesthesiology."
Oh, and you made a difference
in
his life.
Well, but I like to do that. It was just a joy for me. I love the management by walking around. Mm-hmm. I had other people who could sit in the offices. I didn't need to sit there. And that was just I had fun. I'm a social guy a little bit, and I love going around. And I still try to do that at the Naval Hospital when I volunteer, is tell people, "Hey, you're looking good. That's a pretty dress." See, now they can't do that.
We can say something similar.
Yeah, but I'm an old guy, and they've known me for 100 years. But I think it's just that I just love people to see it. And I'm a bottom line, task-oriented person. I want to see it get done, and I want to see it get done with people who enjoy getting it done. And I've enjoyed that too, and so...
What would you advise others that are looking to be leaders like you've been?
I think they got to be able to be good at it themselves, and I was fairly good at being a... See, I always thought my job as a junior guy was to make the boss look good. And so if I could make him look good, that was what I was supposed to do. Yeah. And I think it paid off because it brings you to the front a little bit if you're making things happen. And I think that be competent as the Dickens, and then don't be afraid to take a risk. And I think we don't see that much anymore.
Tell me about some of your risks.
Well, I took some risks saying to some people that I could do a job once. I won't tell you specifically because it's got some embarrassing things for the people.
And could you do that job?
I could.
You're not going to tell me about?
No, I'm not. And one was handling, firing a CO of a hospital.
Tough.
And it was tough. I recall those things because it was a risk that I took, and everybody criticized me for doing it, but it was right.
Yep.
And this guy was a very senior guy, but he lied to me. And I couldn't stand that. And so I took a risk, and I said, "You're gone." And everybody called me, "Oh, what are you going to do with him?" I said, "That's your problem. He's not at my hospital anymore. You got to do something." It wasn't Bethesda. It was another hospital.
Well, it was for the greater good.
Yes, it was. And we put a person in there that made that hospital just bubble up with the added contagious enthusiasm for everything. And it was the right thing to do. But risk is sometimes a little tough.
Well, and I think if you can see past that point in time where there's difficulty and the end result is positive, it makes it worthwhile.
A young guy going into dentistry nowadays, he's got to be a very, very good clinician.
Yeah.
And then when he gets the job later, don't say, "Well, I got to go home at 4 o'clock." You know, I mean,
there's no end to the day.
That's right. It may be 8 o'clock. Go coach that team. Go do. But I had fun doing that. A lot of people don't.
Well, you know, you have not stopped doing things, and I'm just looking to see at the incredible number of volunteer activities that you have at McLean Bible Church with the National Museum of Dentistry that's coming up to its 10th anniversary, the American Red Cross with the Navy Dental School and your ethics course that you teach.
It's kind of fun.
Your days are filled from morning till night.
They
Is
are.
That right?
They are. And I think that, you see, many people, and I don't want this to sound bad, although I want my sons to hear, because I'm going to buy one of these.
Well, tell them right now. We need all that advice.
As we grow older, we still have a lot to offer.
Right.
In fact, we have more to offer than we did when we were younger because we've experienced all those things. And then when I teach at my church, and my wife and I are doing a old-timers retreat in West Virginia for 160 older people. The thing about your gray hair, and in Proverbs it says it's wisdom, and it's given to you. And why not use it? I mean, I can go into the Naval Hospital now as a Red Cross. I work up in surgery. And I can put my arm around a young Marine's wife who had lost a leg. And just because I got gray hair and I'm older and I can squeeze her arm and she knows that I feel for her.
Right.
You see, so I think I have an advantage. Now, we call it in some of our groups chronologically advantaged.
I like that.
Old terms are not good. But I think that those things come through. And why shouldn't I? I mean, I've spent 70 years getting to this point. Why shouldn't I keep it going?
Yeah.
And so I plan on doing that, other than I relax a lot more now and take a nap more now. But the point is, I think when I teach at the church, they want to hear what I did because I've been through that. Or I had a success or failure. You learn a lot by failure.
Right.
And I've been through those things because I'm older. Not that I'm better, but I'm older because there's a lot more things to have done.
But you're also willing to share them.
Yeah, I don't mind telling everybody what I screwed up.
I think that is, those stories I think are the most poignant.
Meaningful. Yeah.
They are meaningful. Now, in listening to your life stories and in knowing you as well, you and Barbara have shared work and family, there's almost like no delineation.
Yeah, yeah.
So usually I'll ask a question about balancing
well,
work
she does.
and family.
She's the balance.
So tell me about how that whole range of events in your life, from professional to personal, are managed, and what you advise us to think about.
Well, Barb and I will be married 49 years next month, and we're quite a team, actually. As I say to people, you need two of us now, because I start the sentence, she finishes. She said, you know, I'll get the first name, she'll get the last name. But as I retired, that's kind of an interesting change in one's life. Mm-hmm. Barb tells everybody I moved in full time, you know, because and so the point being there is that you have to work out the balance, and you need some of your own time. She has her women's groups and her favorite, and Wednesdays is our time apart. I go to the Naval Hospital, she teaches at the church. You got to have that, but we think a lot alike, and she has been through the same stuff I have. Mm-hmm. She's a magnificent mother. And the things that occur, she is a deeper thinker than me. You see, she's more academic than I am. She's more of a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. So my scattered brain, I'll get it done stuff, is balanced by her perfectionism. Now, she's slow at getting them done. I get them done fast. But the point of it is that together we come out right at a beautiful medium. And when we teach classes at McLean Bible to young couples. We use 2 microphones because it's important. When she says something I don't agree with, I got to jump in.
And you don't want to take the mic away.
No, so we have 2 mics. And and our kids have been very interested in how we do things. We have 9 grandchildren with the 3 boys, and they've had wonderful careers. But they have assisted also in their response to us, makes us learn. And, you know, Rick will be 48 years old. Our baby's 42. And
tell me about the 3 boys.
Well,
and
they're
their
an interesting
families.
group. The oldest boy, of course, you ruined because you don't know how. You know, we gave you a class in how to be a parent.
They're just tougher. The oldest one is just tougher.
He is tougher. Right. And the second one. Our oldest boy is a retired naval officer who is an epidemiologist that teaches at UCSD and runs the HIV program for OSD at the Secretary of Defense's office. They live in Carlsbad, California, and they got 3 fantastic kids, 16, 14, and 12, and a new dog, which is an Alaskan Husky. We haven't met the Husky yet. And the 2 of them, his wife is a pediatrician, retired Navy, and they live in Carlsbad, never coming back east. They love California, but he has an RV, so they come to our cottage every summer in the RV. And so Rick comes to town a lot with the HIV, so we get to see him. We just don't get to see.
He was stationed in Italy? Is that
right? Oh, no,
or?
that's the next one.
Okay, all right.
Rick was in Spain, met his wife in Spain, and they're doing pretty well. He's at Point Loma in California right now, at San Diego area. But they're a little older, and they're both, his wife was a retired Navy ex-corpsman. She's wonderful, and she volunteers Red Cross at Camp Pendleton. I got her talked into that. So that's a good one. He's the oldest one, and he's the one that's got the frustrations of the parents. Nifty guy. He can do anything. He can do 20 things at once. He's just a wonderful man. 6'4", big guy. The second son is a lawyer, a Navy lawyer, who's the CO of the NILSO here in Washington, D.C., as a Navy captain, and went to Case Western Law School. Ohio Wesleyan, played basketball at Ohio Wesleyan for several years. And he married a girl that went to the Naval Academy. And Cheryl and Russ live in Burke, Virginia. They have 3 little boys. And he's football coach, and does all the thing. And she does the soccer mom things and Boy Scout. Tonight, I think they're sleeping over and outside for the first Boy Scout sleep out. You know, I mean, and they're magnificent. We get to see them about every week, which is wonderful. They're here in Virginia. And our third son, our baby guy, is a land developer. He's a dual engineer guy. He's a civil engineer, ocean engineer, and he's in Chesterfield, Virginia. He's lives out in a 12-acre plot out 12 miles from nothing. Wife's homeschooler, 3 kids, 12, and 9. And it's a nifty family. Bob is a deacon of the Baptist church there in Chesterfield, and So we're blessed with 3 great kids and the daughter-in-laws, and we just love these 9 kids running around. That's sort of our privilege right now to get to know them a little better, because we're getting a little older and time flies.
Time flies, but it looks like they patterned their lives after you and Barbara's life, in a way, with family structure and with some of the careers. And I think it's terrific that you have the opportunity for all of them to come to your cottage in Michigan in the summertime.
Yeah, I love it. They all love the Lord, and they all love their family, and what else can you ask for? I mean, that's the best of all worlds. Yeah.
Well, my image of you and Barbara over the years has been just as the dental glamour couple.
Oh.
And if I close my eyes and I see you both sitting on the podium, the dais, for the International College of Dentists with Barbara sparkling earrings.
Does.
So you have made an impression on hundreds and thousands of dentists through that organization, and definitely through all of healthcare providers for the Navy, and we've been very privileged. So, with all of that now, and I know there's a lot more coming in the future from you, what would you have done differently if you were to do it again?
Well, my career was pretty good. I mean, I shouldn't.
It was fabulous. It was pretty good.
In an interview like this, I know you have to pat yourself on the back a little bit. It was on schedule, if not early in some areas, and I probably wouldn't. I loved every minute of it. I guess my religious life was a little slow. Barb became a believer 20 years before I did, and I didn't. And I think I would hurry that up. I'm trying to catch up from the point of view of just information. I would have probably hurried that up, but the Lord didn't see it fit to do that. So I don't think I would change much. I'd love to have my father around. He's been gone 40 years, and I would love to have my kids
have met him and know him.
Impacted by him, but that wasn't meant to be either. We have no parents. Barb's mom and dad are gone, and I never knew my grandparents, and she never. It's been kind of a jip, I think, for the kids not to know them, because kids can learn a lot. We find now the grandchildren love sitting there and listening to Barb tell stories about me, or how we met, or what I tell stories about her. They laugh. Well, and I think it's a responsibility of us as parents to pass that on through generations to do them. So when we go to the cottage, we put 17 at the table, and we don't let anybody get up, and we talk family. And it's amazing. All the little grandkids want to be involved. Well, Grandpa, well, wait a minute. Let me tell you about that. And, of course, Barb's a better storyteller than I am. She's better with words than I am. And so she really does embellish it better. And the kids, she's a good storyteller. And the kids all know it. And then, of course, the sons pop in. Come on, Dad. So it's a great time to pass on family traditions.
Well, you're also passing on the traditions from your father and your mother and Barb's parents too. So even though they're not around, they're hearing those stories.
They were good ones.
So let's get back to dentistry. What do you see as the future of dentistry for this country and globally from your perspective of the International College?
Well, I think it's a bright future. I think a young person nowadays has an opportunity. The whole emphasis has changed from when I was around to be a clinical guy. And of course, in your business right now, all those things. But I would say if a young kid wanted to go into it, I think the future is pretty bright from the point of view of there's so much more information out there. There's so much more you can do. There's so much more you can try to influence your patients to say that oral health is really part of systemic health. And I think that we got to do that better. We've done pretty well in prevention by saving money. I think it's probably the most successful prevention program of any healthcare things. But I think that the kids got an opportunity. I have the opportunity in 2 weeks to be one of the final judges for Navy Medicine's clinical research. And I'm having trouble reading the titles of the abstracts.
because of all of the molecular
the genomes,
biology and the genomics and proteomics.
And so I have to rely on somebody that tells me that this, in fact, is good research. I don't know that. If you tell me it is, then I can read the paper and see if I can get what they're saying. So we read the abstracts, and I can tell you where I like their audiovisuals. But so I think the future is really nifty. I think people are going to get a different education. I think we got to convince more people in our dental schools maybe to teach ethics and to teach communications, which we don't do it all that well.
And I think that is so important, because right now some of the issues about being able to inform our patients in plain language, which is very important, as well as the ethics are becoming much more complicated in our world in addressing all the information security and everything else that you just mentioned.
And patients are smarter and they're more demanding
and they're on
more
the internet.
litigious.
That's right.
We've got more information out there to play with.
Well, what about healthcare delivery? Since you oversaw an integrated delivery system, how do you see the future of dentistry within an integrated healthcare delivery?
I think it's working pretty well. My total information here and impression is from the Naval Hospital, which I still see every week, because I have lunch with the secretary to the dean, and I see them working pretty well now. We've done some interesting things. We've had our oral surgeons maybe get dual degrees. Now I think they're backing off with some of that. But I see our dental guys being integrated into most everything. The pain clinic is done by
fabulous
dental,
pain clinic, right?
And it's pulling in the physicians, and they're learning. So I think that's an area which is certainly one where there's still a lot to do, and there's still a lot of jealousy maybe in some of the specialties. But I don't see the old things of the ENT, the plastic, and the oral surgeon. I think there's plenty for everybody.
Right.
And so I think that the integration of healthcare, we still have a convincing job to do on medicine to tell them where we fit. And we've got to do that.
And that's a story that needs to be told by leaders such as you.
We got to do that. I think we're getting out there and doing it, some of it, but it's got to be started in the schools.
That's right.
And either the curriculum is too short, too long for the years, or we've got to look at curriculum, because the clinical stuff you can learn after, but if you're not learning the original stuff in school,
the basics,
to get the boards, and unfortunately I'm not that close to it anymore. I don't watch what the American Dental is doing and what schools are doing. I just don't see that much.
Well, what does the future hold for you?
Well, the middle of the month I'm going to sit in the most beautiful woods in the world. We built a home where we're going to spend 5 months this year in the woods. It's a dirt road a mile back from nothing. And it's where it's called The Gatherings, where the kids and everybody comes, and we've had a lot of friends stop in. We're going to spend a lot of time up there, and Barbara and I are creating some curriculums that we're teaching together as a team. And so it's a great place to read, watch the birds. We got hummingbirds flying all over. The flowers grow great. It's and I want to spend some time up there. I don't want to give up my time, though, working at the Naval Hospital. Right. I don't want to give up my time working at McLean Bible. But that's going to be half of that. See, I don't need to go take a cruise anymore. I got my cottage to take the cruise. And Barbara and I just love it. She's the one that took me up there 50 years ago. It's a family resort, and she's got 3 or 4 cousins and a sister that have a cottage within maybe 600-700 yards of us.
That's great.
So it's a place to just enjoy and have people come and watch nature and walk the beach. And so that's the future right now. We hope to go up there in a couple weeks. And although we're taking a cross-the-country railroad trip, we've never done it. We're going to get on a train in Holland, Michigan, and go to Sacramento and to Seattle and then back to Chicago.
All around.
Yeah, we're going to do that. That's in the near future. but to continue to see our friends. We got them all over the country, or the world at dental meetings. We'll go to the International College every meeting because Barb and I are still the chairman of the convocation committee, and it's great.
You're still the lifeblood and always will be. I wanted to just thank you. This has been just a terrific opportunity and an honor for me to have a chance to sit down with you. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end?
No, I did want to say, and John, I don't know where John is. John's been the director of these programs from the University of Oklahoma, and of course your assistance and just the beauty added to our interviewing process is you, and I thank you. And I hope we have continued this for many years.
I'm looking forward to it.
I don't know what your future is, but I plan on doing it, and I hope you say yes.
Oh,
so,
I'd love to.
Thank you. This has been a real joy.
And thank you. This has been just terrific.
Well, I don't know if it's a stretch or not, but thank you, Ms. Alka.
You're welcome.
You're special.
You're welcome, and you are too. I'm going to just give it.
Oh, aren't you? I give you $1, but I got to pay parking.
All right. Wonderful.
Okay.